All right, so today we're drawing inspiration from Cocoons as we explore what transformation means to us. And we'll learn about the stages of metamorphosis, and we'll look at the difference between a cocoon and a chrysalis, and look at other beings who go through metamorphosis, and then we'll explore some symbolism as well. So as we're talking about everything, we just invite you to contemplate for yourself perhaps which phase of metamorphosis you feel that you are in right now, and also which phase you feel like you're headed toward, because we're going to be using these two phases later on when we do the expressive art section. So feel free to take notes, like I said, and just receive and see what lands for you. So on this page, you can see a variety of all different types of cocoons, and also you'll see the chrysalis in there as well. So I'm going to be giving you a basic understanding of what complete metamorphosis looks like, so we can really feel into each phase fully. So there are 4 phases. See if I can go to the next one. There we go. There are 4 phases that both moths and butterflies go through, and it starts with the egg, and then it goes to the larva or the caterpillar stage, which you'll see they go through many transformations during the larva stage. And then it goes into the pupa and then becomes an adult. So we'll start with the egg phase. So once the butterfly or moth has mated, they will lay their eggs on a plant that is usually perfect food for the egg once they hatch, so they can start eating right away. And some species lay just a single egg on a leaf, and that's such as the monarch butterfly. But other species lay a cluster of eggs so that the larvae kind of stay as a little group while they're in the larva stage. And some can also lay an egg that lasts all through the winter time and will hatch in the spring or summer. So that's a pretty interesting feeling, that really winter hardy egg. And then we move into the larva stage. Now this is a fully grown, nice and plump and juicy caterpillar here. So they are very close to the final phase of their larva stage. But in most cases, after the larva hatches from the egg, it will eat the shell as a first nutritious meal. And then basically it's just eat and grow time. The caterpillars will eat until they get too big for their outer layer, which is like their exoskeleton layer. And so it will take a break from eating for a moment. It will shed its outer layer and it will become the next phase of caterpillar. And it just continues to repeat this cycle: eat, poop, molt, eat, poop, molt, until it's ready for its final molt. And this is where things get interesting. So here is a monarch, and it's doing its final molt. So you can see that final layer is the exoskeleton coming off, and the pupa phase is what's the next phase. So right underneath that layer, it had already created its next outer layer of skin, which is actually the pupa. And with the butterfly caterpillars, we call this phase a chrysalis. And this is where all of the transformation occurs, and also where we see the difference between what a cocoon is and a chrysalis. So here's that monarch chrysalis starting to become a butterfly in there. I just love this picture. And here is a moth pupa. So a moth caterpillar will build itself a cocoon made of silk before it sheds the final layer, while the butterfly caterpillar will attach itself to a safe place like a branch using the silk. And the final shed is visible to the eye with the butterfly pupa, but not visible to us because the moth butterfly does this inside of their silk cocoon. So no more feeding are moving around in this stage. I'm going to show us a few more beautiful cocoons. I just love these. So there's no more feeding or moving around. They're just still and they're reconstructing. And inside the pupa, the caterpillar body dissolves into a goop of cells. And there are imaginal cells that are already programmed as to what part of the body they're going to become. So an antenna here, a left wing, a right wing, and so on. So this is all what's happening in the pupa stage. And here's another beautiful example of a silk cocoon. And what's also interesting is we may just be walking around outside and not even notice that what looks like a dead leaf that's left over on a branch is actually a moth cocooning inside of there. So just to take notice of that. It might be right in front of you. And then we reach the adult stage. So this is an adult moth outside of the cocoon here. When the adult is fully formed inside the pupa, it breaks out with a swollen abdomen and shriveled wings. And it's often just there resting on the branch or hanging on to its pupa or chrysalis while it expands. And it's drying out its wings and it releases a waste from all of the metamorphosis. So there's this final letting it all out before it really fully is ready to fly. So I kind of love that part as well. And once it's done drying out its wings, it's ready to fly away. And it immediately goes in search of its mate to start the cycle again. And that is the full cycle. There's just one more moth here. I just love this. So beautiful. And then we have a butterfly here. So you may feel called to support butterflies and moths this year by planting both the host plants that are good for the larvae to feed on and the nectar plants for the adults. And it makes your garden this beautiful, multi-dimensional, multi-layered, beautiful display that's also beneficial for the moths and the caterpillars. So yeah, so that's where I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Lori. I love that. I love the final release. I'm really feeling called to that. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about inspiration of cocoons and transformation from our caterpillar and moth friends, and talk about the other nature beings that cocoon and other ones that go through a metamorphosis. So as far as cocoons go, bees, worms, flies, leeches, beetles, wasps, and fleas also cocoon. And then for metamorphosis, actually many species experience metamorphosis, 80% of insects and 50% of vertebrates. So, and just a little tidbit, we're not experts, so I will be talking about some sea creatures, and I know we have some experts with that today. So this is just some fun exploring that Lori and I like to do to get inspired, and I'll talk about some of the resources I found the information from. But if any of the information needs to be tweaked, you just go right ahead and let me know. So the first one, actually a few animals that I wanted to highlight that go through metamorphosis: dragonflies, scorpions, salamanders, crustaceans like lobster, crabs, and prawns, jellyfish, sea anemones, starfish, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers. And a lot of those were a surprise to me. So the first one, as Lori has put on, we're going to talk about dragonfly a little bit. And this information comes from the British Dragonfly Society. And so with dragonflies, eggs hatch either 2 to 5 weeks with emerald damselflies, or even the following spring. So a lot of waiting for dragonfly. In fact, they spend most of their lives in the larva stage, which is the next stage. The larva will molt within hours or immediately. And they'll just continue molting 5 to 14 times in their life. And this can take 1 to 2 years typically. For the emerald damselfly, it's 2 to 3 months, so it's a bit shorter. But for the golden ring dragonfly, it's 5 years of molting. So lots of shedding. I love that. And then if you can go to the next one this isn't a larva, but it just reminds me the larva does gather at the edge of the water, learning to breathe for a few days. So they spend time doing that. And then for about 1 to 3 hours, they go through a process of redistributing the fluids in their body for their final molt, which is triggered by the length of the day or the temperature outside. And then we'll see the next one where the dragonfly is coming out, and they'll take about 30 minutes for their legs to harden, and they'll kind of push out and leave little bits behind as it hardens. And this is called the cast skin, or the excuvia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but we'll go for it. So yeah, you can see this here with the two, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen that with, looks kind of like a katydid to me, or a cicada. So that is the dragonfly. And then I'll talk a little bit about our next friend, the jellyfish. So this is from the life cycle of a jellyfish on thoughtco.com. The jellyfish goes through 6 stages. The eggs hatch and the larvae float for a few days, then settle on the ocean floor. They have these tiny hairs called cilia that helps them propel in different areas of the ocean. And if they don't get eaten, they finally settle to the bottom of the floor. And they'll land on a hard surface and transform into a polyp. Now, this isn't necessarily, the next one isn't a jellyfish polyp, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like, those tendrils. So polyps will grow and link together by feeding tubes. The jellyfish one is a bit longer. And this can take several years for it to reach a certain size. And then the polyp colony forms these little horizontal grooves, and the stacks bud off. It kind of looks like saucers into a tiny baby jellyfish, which is on the next one. There they are. And those are called ephira. Again, I've found a few pronunciations for this one. There's also ephira. And these gradually grow to become fuller, rounded, translucent with the bells jellyfish, which is the last one. And these are called medusas, another name for them. There they are. And then our last little nature being that undergoes some metamorphosis is the salamander. And like all amphibians, the larva is in the water, and they start with external gills and dorsal fins, and then they lose that. So that's the transformation, and they'll develop lungs to live on land. And so I liked the inspiration from salamander because there's one type of salamander that actually does not go through the full metamorphosis, the axolotl. Just on the next one, I think. There it is. And we just visited one of these in a nature place nearby. And so this one is a freshwater salamander, and it lives in the lakes of Mexico City in Mexico. And the reason why it's kind of stuck in the larva stage is that in the fresh water, there's not the iodine that triggers the thyroid hormone to start the metamorphosis process. And I don't know, this little creature here like just has a place in my heart, because I do think there are times that we kind of get stuck and saying, you know what, it's okay. Like there's a whole species here that got stuck and is just not going to be moving on to the next phase, and allowing that to happen sometimes in our lives. And it is very rare. The axolotl can um, go through metamorphosis where it looks a little bit like the tiger salamander. But it is, like I said, very rare. And then if you go to the last slide, Lori, just another salamander friend. The other thing I liked about salamanders was the differences in the lifespan. So that final stage, the adult stage, the axolotl will, have 10 to 15 years um, in its stage, but other salamanders, like the giant Chinese salamander, which this is not a picture of that, will have 50 to 70 years. So just taking into account that preciousness, just even within the same type of animal, of like one lifespan to another, can be very different. So that's my little story time about our nature beings. And then a little bit of symbolism with cocoons and transformation, which, Lori, if you want to go back to a cocoon picture, we can all feel into it. Here we go. So this is really what I want to experience and explore today. Just a little bit about the meaning behind cocoons. Really, cocoons represent surrendering everything, that we must change for life to change. There's this death and rebirth cycle. It also reminds us to take time, allowing as much time as necessary. And I think what Lori talked about, and some of our nature friends, of being in these stages for years at a time and waiting, is very potent to take with us. There's beauty of working through things. So the butterfly in particular, when it's trying to come out of the chrysalis, it does look like it's struggling quite a bit. And if, unfortunately, anything helps it along, the butterfly will not form its wings, and its wings will be damaged. So there's a huge message there of just, working through things on your own, and you've got it, so that you can fly. Also is new beginnings, a sense of safety, healing, new perspectives, tolerance building, dedication, and hard work. So just to get us all cozied up with cocoons a bit more.
All right, so we just learned all about cocoons and transformation and metamorphosis, and now we're going to be transitioning into the intuitive art portion of our session today. So I invite you to gather up any art supplies that you have at home. It could be colored pencils, markers, paints, etc., and have at least 2 pieces of paper for this part. And we're going to be exploring 2 phases of transformation. So on the first page, you're going to be exploring, what phase of transformation are you in right now? And you're going to be expressing that. You can use color, you can use symbols, you can draw an actual picture if you like, and just allow yourself to flow with this. It does not have to look a certain way. This is intuitive art. It's all about you just embodying the feeling, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's just for you. So the first phase is where you are right now. And then we're going to be moving into the second page, which is, where are you headed? So what phase of transformation are you headed toward? And you're going to be expressing that in the same way. And I invite you, if while you're doing this, you start to feel any messages coming in, sometimes I like to write the messages right onto my art, or infuse it into the art in some way, or you can write that down in your journal to return to when you're done creating your art. And I also invite you to put on a playlist of music. I really love anything instrumental. Really helps to get into the zone and that timeless space of creating acoustic or classical music, whatever it is for you that you like, and enjoy this time creating your different phases. All right. So now that you've created your two phases, you can take some time, you can observe, breathe into each one, and just notice where your attention is going to on each page. You can start with one phase, move to the next. And I really love to hone in on different parts of my piece. And if you feel like it, you can ask it questions, see if any messages are coming back in. And I think at this point we can do a little great reveal. So, Sarah, do you want to? We can both show our first phase for where we're at.
Okay.
Okay.
Great
So,
reveal.
great reveal.
Ooh,
Mhm.
look at that.
So nice.
Those
Oh.
herbs, Lori.
Yeah, so for my phase, I chose a pot with cilantro or parsley and dill because of an experience I had where a mother swallowtail laid her eggs on my dill plant that was on my patio. And I went down a beautiful journey with four caterpillar eggs, watching them turn into black swallowtail butterflies in the course of like about a month and a half. So I feel for me, this phase is like giving myself the nourishment that I need to keep growing and shedding. And the phrases that came in were focus on growth, nourishment, preparation, and shedding my layers. So that's
Oh,
the phase that I'm in right now.
I like the words you added.
Yeah, some sunshine,
Oh,
some
yes.
blue,
Oh.
water, and then like little parts missing for where we were eating.
Oh, munch munch. I
Munch,
love
munch, munch.
that. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
I have I did a Luna moth here with some moonshine, not too much, just a little bit, shining moon. And I'm in the middle of some thorns. It's a bit prickly, a bit sharp. But then there's some release going on, and it's got water vibes to release and relief.
Mm,
So yeah.
the final release
Right? It's the final
before
stage
flight.
before, yes, getting ready, getting ready.
I love
Mm,
that. So then we can reveal where are
yes,
we headed? What
where are
phase
we
are we headed
headed?
toward? Do, 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 do,
Here we
do.
go. Ooh. Oh, look at your chrysalis.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to get the kind of like the soft cocoon,
Mm,
like the leaf with the silk,
yep.
little pupa in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what
for
do
this
you,
one, it says, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. Let nature happen naturally.
oh,
And I guess that's kind of a few things, like those cocoons outside. Sometimes it does look just like a dead leaf. You don't know what's inside. But also, I was feeling into the imaginal cells inside of the pupa that are dissolving, and the cell knows exactly what it's going to be, but it doesn't look like it, and you can't see it yet, but you know it knows it's going to be a wing, it's going to be an antenna. So trusting that, like, there's a part of me that knows where I'm going, and I don't have
mm.
to force an effort so much. So let it happen.
And it reminds me like we are nature, right? We are here to become, and
Let
nature is
yourself
holding
do it.
us
Mm,
naturally, naturally.
yes.
Like that. Well, I busted through the thorns here. Moth is gone. Moth flew away. Um, but yeah, the thorns are breaking, and we've got the water and the release uh, swirling all the way up to the sky to become a full moon. I think moth became the full moon there. So yeah, that's just where I'm headed.
I
Just
love it.
bright and shiny and high and moving beyond the the prickers,
Yeah.
the sharpness to
Mm-hmm.
become the light. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
So
you.
I hope you all enjoyed this intuitive art activity and get those messages and the wisdom. And you can display both phases somewhere in your home to remind you of where you are and where you're heading and sort of check in with yourself. So thank you for joining me for the intuitive art section today.
All right, Lori. And next up is our voice. So we're going to take it a step further, moving beyond words before we even learn words, and using our voice to give these two phases a sound. And what we like to call it is vocal play. So if you don't know what vocal play is, it's just using your voice to give something a unique sound. And it can be really light, really playful, creative. Really anything goes. So it could be a sound in nature like wind or crinkling of a leaf. You could make a sound like an animal or a tune, or maybe a song comes in that you remember, or something that you had heard a long time ago. You can tap into that, sing along with that. A hum is a wonderful way to tap into your voice. And yeah, we're just going to look at our art, and we're going to make two vocal plays today. And the voice is just so important. Throughout the day, we can hold a lot of tension in our shoulders. You might feel tense and feel your shoulders creep up, or there's a lot of emotions within our throat that could get stuck. Maybe we didn't say what we wanted to say during the day, or maybe choosing the right words to say how we want to say something can be a bit tricky. So this exercise of just using our voice can really help release that energy, release emotions. And as we vocal play, we're going to just cycle through and observe any sensations in our body to know, aha, this is the sound for this phase, and then another one, this is the sound for that phase. And you'll know, like you'll get a little, we're going to like use your intuition, and you'll get a little sensation. It might be a smile, or I get a little tingly in my eyes. Yeah, so we're just going to release some energy. You might get some chills or a yawn. So just feel through the feelings, and we're going to laugh and smile along the way. So I'm going to demonstrate this for you first. I'm going to pick one of my phases. I actually put it on the same paper because I was actually going back and forth a little bit, Lori, of like working on this one and working on that one. So they kind of fuse together anyway, but I'm going to do, I think I'm going to pick for this one, the water. So you can make a sound for your whole phase if you want, but I think I want to be that flowy water today, breaking through the thorns. So let's see. Whoa, 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 whoa. And you can receive messages just like Lori was talking about, communicating with your art, communicating with your vocal play. I'm going to cycle through that one a bit more, but initially, this motion here with the gentle movements just feels like that surrendering, like the symbolism we talked about. So yeah, and I invite you, Lori's going to demonstrate in a moment too, but before I forget, I also invite you to record your vocal play so that you can listen to it. You can video yourself so you can see the gentle movements you pick, or you can make a voice memo and title it so that you have it labeled your own creation. All right, Lori, you ready to give it a shot?
Yes. All right. So I will vocal play the where I'm at currently, which is the growth phase, munching on munching on all of this nourishment here. Um, yeah, and I'm really feeling that feeling of growth. So I already have some things. All right, let's see. I'm growing, I'm growing. I'm growing, I'm growing. I'm growing, I'm growing. I'm growing, I'm growing. And then there's I'm growing, I'm growing. I'm growing, I'm growing. That's shedding off a layer so I can keep eating.
That is so good. Like, ooh, that feels, I like got the chills doing it. That is
That feels
like
good.
a nice wiggle release. Oh, hmm. So I invite you to take some time, get a comfy, cozy, quiet space where you can explore your voice and get creative and have fun.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, for that vocal play time. I hope you all enjoyed exploring your voice and connecting it with your intuitive art and weaving it all together with the magic of nature and sharing this all together in this cocoon today. What a transformation. Just by showing up and giving yourself this time and carving out that space to dive into your creativity and infuse nature into your life, you really have gone through your own transformation today. So just acknowledging you and thanking all of the cocoons and creatures who teach us so much about the cycles and phases of life. So feel free to infuse what we've done today into your day. You can bring your art into a sacred space in your home. You can use your vocal play in the shower or singing it to your loved ones and take it with you. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And Sarah, do you have anything else you want to add?
Just thank you so much for being on this journey with us. And yeah, let us know any insights or discoveries you had along the way. If you feel like being brave and bold and sharing your vocal play, we find the recordings that we make of our vocal play, we'll play them back, years later, and you're just right back there in that moment. It comes back quite quickly. So enjoy that process and enjoy your voice. And yeah, hope you had a wonderful time transforming with us. With care and connection.
From our cocoon to yours. Bye.